one of the most preserved and complete ever found unearthed right here in Montana at the Hell Creek Formation near Fort Peck Lake. Researchers and students at the University of Kansas recovered the fossilized remains, which are about 66 million years old.
66 million years ago, a monster roamed what is now Montana. It stood taller than a double-decker bus. Its jaws could crush bone like paper. And then it vanished, buried beneath layers of rock and time, waiting. In September 2025, a coyote hunter named Trent Stanton saw something strange sticking out of the dirt. He had no idea he was about to uncover the largest T-Rex teeth ever found in history. Teeth so massive they would shatter every existing world record. The coyote hunter's discovery. The badlands of Garfield County, Montana, stretch for miles in every direction. Rolling hills of brown and gray sediment rise and fall like frozen waves. The landscape looks almost alien, carved by millions of years of wind and water into shapes that seem to belong on another planet. Very few people live out here. The nearest shopping mall sits 180 miles away in Billings. This is cattle country, where ranchers work the same land their grandparents worked, and where coyotes still hunt rabbits across the open range. The Badlands earned their name honestly. Early settlers found them nearly impossible to cross with wagons. The terrain is treacherous, riddled with steep ravines and unstable slopes that crumble without warning. Summers bring scorching heat that bakes the clay into concrete hardness. Winters bring brutal cold that cracks exposed rock like glass. Rain, when it comes, transforms dry gullies into raging torrents that reshape the landscape overnight. It is a harsh place, unforgiving to those who do not respect its dangers. But the Badlands also hold secrets. The same erosive forces that make the terrain so difficult to navigate also expose what lies beneath. Every rainstorm washes away another layer of sediment. Every windstorm strips another inch of overburden. And sometimes, what emerges from that stripped-away earth is something extraordinary. Trent Stanton knows this land intimately. He has spent years calling coyotes across these hills, using electronic calls to lure predators within rifle range. It is a skill passed down through generations of Montana ranchers, a way to protect livestock from hungry predators. On this particular September morning in 2025, Stanton was doing exactly what he had done hundreds of times before. He was scanning the horizon, watching for movement, listening to the wind. The morning had started like any other. Stanton had risen before dawn, loaded his gear into his truck, and driven out to a spot he knew well. The coyote population had been growing lately, and several ranchers in the area had reported losses. Stanton positioned himself on a hillside with good visibility and began playing his calls. The sounds of distressed rabbits echoed across the silent landscape. Then something caught his eye. Something was sticking up out of the ground. At first, Stanton could not tell what it was. The object protruded from the eroded hillside like a broken branch, except there were no trees anywhere nearby. It was pale against the dark sediment, catching the morning light at an angle that made it stand out. He walked closer, his boots crunching on the dry sediment. As he approached, he realized it was a bone, a very large bone. "I just saw something sticking up out of the ground, and I really didn't know what it was," Stanton later recalled. "I just thought it was a bone." He called a friend to come help investigate. Together, the two men carefully scraped at the earth around the mysterious object. The bone was larger than anything either of them had ever encountered.
Post-secondary institution just uncovered the closest known ancestor to the mighty T-Rex.
It was clearly old, mineralized, and heavy, not the sun-bleached remains of a dead cow or elk. Within minutes, they realized they were dealing with something far beyond their expertise. More bone emerged, then more. The pieces were enormous, unlike anything either man had ever seen. "We kind of dug on it for a minute and realized it was over our heads," Stanton explained. they made a critical decision. Instead of continuing to dig and potentially damaging whatever lay beneath the surface, they covered the site back up with dirt and rocks. Many amateur fossil discoveries have been ruined by well-meaning but inexperienced people
who knows a thing or two about dinosaurs. We featured him in a story last fall.
Who damage fragile specimens while trying to extract them. Stanton knew enough to know that he did not know enough. Whatever this was, it needed expert attention. Then Stanton pulled out his phone and made a call that would change everything. He called his cousin Clayton. And Clayton Fipps is not just any Montana rancher. Clayton Fipps had been waiting his entire life for a call like this, and what he was about to see would leave even him speechless. The dinosaur cowboy, Clayton Fipps is known throughout the paleontology world as the dinosaur cowboy. It is a title he has earned through decades of extraordinary discoveries, a title that perfectly captures who he is. A third-generation Montana cattleman who traded his lasso for excavation tools and became one of the most successful fossil hunters in America. To look at Fipps, you would see a typical Montana rancher. Weathered hands, sun-creased face, the easy posture of a man who has spent his life working outdoors. He wears cowboy boots and a wide-brimmed hat. He speaks with the slow, measured cadence of someone who has learned patience from the land itself. But behind that traditional exterior lies one of the most successful fossil hunters of his generation. His story begins in 1998.
Before we had scrapping material, and there was some speculation. Actually, Dr. Bacher named it as a new species in 1988.
On his family's 1,100-acre ranch near the tiny community of Brusette, a stranger showed Fipps a piece of Triceratops frill, a fragment of the distinctive bony shield that once protected the head of one of the most famous dinosaurs in history. The stranger mentioned casually that the piece might be worth around $500. And I was like, "The heck it is! You found that just walking around?" Fipps recalls. That moment changed his life. Fipps began educating himself obsessively, visiting museums, reading everything he could find about fossils and excavation techniques. He spent weekends at the Museum of the Rockies in Bozeman, studying their collections and talking to paleontologists. He learned that his ranch sat directly atop the Hell Creek Formation, one of the most fossil-rich geological deposits on Earth. The same land his family had ranched for generations was actually a 66-million-year-old graveyard of prehistoric giants. The realization was staggering. For decades, Fipps and his family had been walking over the remains of creatures that had dominated the planet when dinosaurs ruled. Every hill on their property might contain bones.
It's kind of a narrow ridge, though, so what we get, This side's gone, this side's gone, and this side's gone, so it's a narrow point that comes out.
Every eroded gully might expose teeth. The possibilities seemed endless. By 2003, Fipps made his first major discovery, a complete Stygimoloch skull, the most intact specimen of that species ever found. Stygimoloch was a bizarre dinosaur, a plant eater with a dome-shaped head covered in horns and spikes. Scientists had debated for years whether it was a distinct species or just a juvenile form of Pachycephalosaurus. Phipps's specimen provided crucial evidence for the ongoing debate. The sale brought over $100,000 and allowed him to pursue fossil hunting full-time. He was no longer just a rancher. He was a professional dinosaur hunter. But his defining discovery came in June 2006.
Percentage that works for me. It's just everybody helping everyone come together and make it work. What do you think, Luke? Should we go check this thing out?
Alongside his cousin Chad O'Connor and friend Mark Eatman, Fipps uncovered something that would captivate the world. Two dinosaurs locked in what appeared to be mortal combat. The find was approximately 60 miles north of his ranch, in a remote area that few people had ever explored systematically. What they found defied expectations: a 28-foot ceratopsian and a 22-foot theropod, both fully articulated from nose to tail, preserved with skin impressions and potentially even internal organs. The ceratopsian lay on its back, the theropod draped over it as if frozen in the moment of attack. Scientists would later confirm the smaller dinosaur was Nanotyrannus lancensis, settling a decades-long debate about whether it was a distinct species or just a juvenile T-Rex. The dueling dinosaurs, as they became known, represented one of the most remarkable fossil finds,
one of the most preserved and complete ever found unearthed right here in Montana at the Hell Creek Formation
in history. But the journey from discovery to public display would take nearly 2 decades. Legal battles erupted over ownership rights. Auction attempts failed when bidders refused to meet reserve prices. Bonhams received only one bid of $5.5 million in 2013, far below expectations. Finally, the specimen was sold to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and was revealed to the public in April 2024. In October 2025, just weeks before the new T-Rex discovery, scientists published research in Nature confirming the Nanotyrannus identification. By then, Fipps had become a television star, appearing on the Discovery Channel's Dino Hunters alongside his son Luke. The show followed fossil hunting ranchers as they searched for specimens across the American West. Fipps had also discovered Chomper, a 55% complete juvenile T-Rex found in 2019 that was listed for sale at $20 million.
Perspective on the Nanotyrannus versus Tyrannosaurus Rex juvenile T-Rex, that's where we're going here.
At the Freeze Masters Art Fair in 2023. So when Trent Stanton called his famous cousin about some bones sticking out of a hillside, Fipps knew exactly what to do. He dropped everything and drove to the site as quickly as he could. His cousins had carefully reburied everything and covered the area with a tarp to protect it from the elements and from prying eyes. When Fipps arrived and lifted that tarp, what he saw made his jaw drop. Teeth that shatter records. Even for a man who had seen everything Montana's badlands could offer, the teeth emerging from that hillside were like nothing he had ever encountered. "I was just blown away by the enormous size of the teeth on this guy," Fipps said. To understand why Fipps was so shocked, you need to understand what a typical T-Rex tooth looks like. These were not the teeth of some gentle plant eater. T-Rex possessed the most powerful bite of any land animal that has ever lived. Each tooth was designed for one purpose: to crush bone and tear flesh. They were thick, serrated along the edges like steak knives, and built to withstand forces that would shatter ordinary teeth. Most T-Rex teeth measure between 6 and 12 inches total length, including the root that anchored them in the jaw. The visible crown, the part that extended beyond the gum line, typically measured 4 to 6 inches. Scientists estimate that T-Rex could exert a bite force of approximately 12,800 pounds, enough to crush a car frame. Those teeth were the delivery mechanism for that devastating power. The largest known T-Rex tooth before this discovery measured approximately 15 5/8 inches, found in Montana's Hell Creek Formation back in 2007. That tooth held the world record for nearly 2 decades. Scientists studied it extensively, using it to estimate the size and power of the animal it came from. For 18 years, no one found anything larger. The first tooth Fipps excavated from the new site measured just shy of 15 inches. That alone would have been extraordinary, close enough to the world record to make headlines. Any paleontologist would have celebrated such a find. The tooth was beautifully preserved, with serrations still visible along the cutting edges. It was a specimen that museums around the world would compete to acquire. But then they found a second tooth. "This tooth alone is a world record tooth," Fipps explained while holding the 15-inch specimen, "but we also found this one at this site. It's 2 inches longer than this one that beat the world record." 2 inches longer? That means the second tooth measures approximately 17 inches from tip to root. 17 inches. That is longer than most human forearms. To put that in perspective, Sue, the most famous and complete Rex ever found has the largest tooth measuring approximately 12 inches. The new Montana tooth exceeds Sue's by a staggering 40%. It is not just a new record. It is a complete redefinition of what we thought possible. "This is a monster T-Rex," Fipps declared. "The implications are enormous. T-Rex teeth are not like shark teeth, which are relatively uniform in size, regardless of the animal's overall dimensions. Sharks continuously replace their teeth throughout their lives, and individual tooth size remains fairly constant. In T-Rex and other dinosaurs, tooth size generally correlates with body size. Larger animals grow larger teeth. If this correlation holds true for the Montana specimen, the creature these teeth came from could be the biggest T-Rex ever discovered. Current record holders in the biggest T-Rex competition include Scotty, discovered in Saskatchewan in 1991, measuring approximately 42 to 43 feet long and weighing an estimated 8,870 kilograms, or about 19,555 pounds. Sioux, found in South Dakota in 1990, comes in at 40 to 42 feet and approximately 8,830 kilograms. Stan, another famous specimen found in 1987, measures approximately 40 feet. These are absolute giants, the largest predators to walk the earth. Both Scotty and Sioux may be smaller than whatever owned these new teeth, but Fipps, ever the experienced scientist, urges caution. Will this be the biggest T-Rex ever found? That remains to be seen, he said. He may just have a big head and big teeth. Animals are different proportions. He is right to be careful. Individual variation exists in all species. Some animals have proportionally larger heads than others. Some have longer tails or heavier bodies. Without more skeletal evidence, it is impossible to know whether these teeth came from a truly massive animal or simply from one with an unusually large skull. The only way to know for certain is to keep digging, and what the team found next raised the stakes even higher. The narrow ridge. The location of the discovery presents both incredible opportunity and heartbreaking limitation. The fossils lie within a narrow ridge formation, a geological feature that has been shaped by millions of years of erosion, wind, rain, and the relentless freeze-thaw cycles of Montana winters have been slowly carving away at this hillside since long before humans walked the earth. There's a big hill there, Fipps explained. It's kind of a narrow ridge, though, so what we get is what we get. This side's gone, this side's gone, and this side's gone. So it's a narrow point that comes out. Whatever is still in that point is what we'll recover from this animal. Think about what that means. For 66 million years, this T-Rex lay buried beneath layers of sediment, slowly transforming into stone through a process called permineralization. Minerals from groundwater seeped into the bones, replacing organic material molecule by molecule, preserving the structure while turning it to rock. The creature that once terrorized the ancient landscape became part of the landscape itself. As the millennia passed, the world above changed dramatically. The western interior seaway that once divided North America retreated and vanished. The Rocky Mountains continued their slow rise. Ice ages came and went, glaciers advancing and retreating across the northern plains. Through all of this, the T-Rex remained buried, waiting in darkness. But erosion is patient and relentless. Over millions of years, the overlying rock began to wear away. Rivers cut new channels through the sediment. Rain carved gullies and ravines. Wind stripped exposed surfaces, grain by grain. Material that once covered the fossil has been washing down hillsides and blowing away for countless millennia. Bones that were once part of this skeleton may have crumbled to dust thousands or even millions of years ago. The very process that revealed these record-breaking teeth has also been destroying portions of the skeleton. Every spring thaw carries more sediment away. Every summer, thunderstorm cuts deeper into the ridge. Every winter, freeze cracks exposed surfaces. The race to excavate is not just against human limitations, it is against the relentless force of geological time itself. Fipps and his team conducted initial excavation during the fall of 2025, working carefully to map and document everything visible at the site. They laid out a measurement grid using stakes and string, creating a coordinate system that would allow them to record the precise location of every bone fragment. They photographed every exposed surface from multiple angles. They began the painstaking process of removing overlying rock, one thin layer at a time. Alongside the massive teeth, they discovered pieces of upper jawbone, confirming that at least part of the skull had survived. The jaw fragments were heavily weathered on one side where they had been exposed to the elements, but beautifully preserved on the other where they had remained protected by rock. This pattern told a story of gradual exposure, of the ridge slowly revealing its secrets over thousands of years. But fall in Montana does not last long. As temperatures dropped and the first snows threatened, Fipps made a critical decision. Rather than rush the excavation and risk damaging irreplaceable fossils, he ordered the site reburied. "I reburied the site and covered it with lots of dirt," he explained, "so hopefully frost doesn't even get down to the bones that are still in the ground." Montana winters are brutal. Temperatures can plunge to 30 or 40 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. The ground freezes solid to depths of several feet. Exposed fossils that have survived 66 million years can crack and shatter in a single season if not properly protected. Water seeps into microscopic fractures, freezes, expands, and breaks the rock apart from the inside. The decision to wait was painful but necessary. Now, as snow blankets the badlands and the fossils wait in frozen darkness, the biggest question remains unanswered. How much of this prehistoric giant actually survived? Montana's dinosaur legacy. The Hell Creek Formation, where the new discovery sits, is perhaps the most important dinosaur-bearing rock unit on Earth. Stretching across Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, this approximately 300-foot thick layer of sediment captures the final 2 million years of the dinosaur era. Everything preserved in these rocks lived between 66 and 67 million years ago, right up until the asteroid impact that ended the age of dinosaurs. The formation takes its name from Hell Creek, a tributary of the Missouri River in Garfield County, the same county where Trent Stanton made his discovery. The name is fitting. The terrain is hellish in its difficulty, but heavenly in its scientific treasures. When these animals were alive, Montana looked nothing like it does today. The climate was subtropical, similar to modern-day Florida's Everglades. Lush vegetation covered the landscape, including flowering plants that had only recently evolved. Giant ferns grew in humid lowlands. Conifers and cycads dominated the higher ground. Rivers wound through swampy floodplains, carrying sediment that would eventually bury and preserve the creatures that lived and died along their banks. The Western Interior Seaway, a vast ocean that once split North America in half from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic Ocean, was slowly retreating eastward. This shallow sea had dominated the continent for tens of millions of years, but by the late Cretaceous, it was shrinking. The coastline moved east, leaving behind the sediments that would become the Hell Creek Formation. T-Rex was the apex predator of this ancient ecosystem, the undisputed king of the food chain. Studies of Hell Creek fossils show that Tyrannosaur family dinosaurs made up about 24% of all large dinosaurs in the region. Triceratops and its relatives dominated at 40%, providing abundant prey for the giant predators. Duck-billed hadrosaurs like Edmontosaurus accounted for another 20%. It was a world of giants, and T-Rex sat at the very top. The Museum of the Rockies in Bozeman houses the world's largest collection of Hell Creek fossils, including more T-Rex and Triceratops specimens than any other institution. Montana's official state dinosaur, Maiasaura peeblesaurum, was discovered at Egg Mountain in 1978 and revolutionized scientific understanding of how dinosaurs cared for their young. The discovery of nesting sites with eggs and juveniles proved that at least some dinosaurs were attentive parents, a revolutionary idea at the time. Clayton Fipps himself has been featured in previous stories for his discoveries in Phillips County, where he uncovered 2 complete dinosaurs just last year. The Montana Badlands keep giving, and scientists keep being surprised by what emerges from the ancient rock. But even against this backdrop of extraordinary discoveries, the question of size continues to haunt paleontologists, and new research suggests we may have drastically underestimated just how big these animals could grow. Giants among giants. For decades, paleontologists have debated a fundamental question: how big could T-Rex actually get? The specimens we have found represent individual animals that happened to die in locations where fossilization was possible, and then happened to survive 66 million years of geological change, and then happened to erode into visibility at a time when humans were around to find them. Statistically, we are almost certainly not looking at the biggest animals that ever lived. Consider the numbers. Scientists estimate that only about 32 adult T-Rex fossils have ever been discovered worldwide. 32 individuals out of a species that existed for roughly 2 million years across a vast geographic range. Population estimates based on ecological modeling suggest that around 2.5 billion T-Rex lived and died during the species' entire existence. We have found 32 of those 2.5 billion. The sample size is statistically insignificant. The odds that one of those 32 represents the absolute largest individual that ever lived are essentially zero. Think of it like trying to find the tallest human who ever lived by randomly selecting 32 skeletons from all of human history. You might find some tall individuals, but you would almost certainly miss the true giants. A groundbreaking 2024 study published in the journal Ecology and Evolution attempted to calculate what the true maximum size might have been. Researchers Mallon and Hone used statistical modeling to estimate that the largest T-Rex individuals could have been up to 70% heavier than Scotty, the current record holder. That would translate to an animal weighing approximately 15,000 kilograms, or about 33,000 pounds, and measuring up to 49 feet in length. 49 feet, nearly half the length of a football field. An animal that could look into second-story windows without stretching. A predator that would make even the largest known T-Rex specimens look modest by comparison. The Montana specimen's record-shattering teeth align disturbingly well with these theoretical maximums. If tooth size correlates with body size, and if the 17-inch tooth came from an animal proportionally larger than known specimens, then Garfield County might be hiding exactly the kind of statistical outlier that paleontologists have always suspected existed but never found. Fipps remains cautious about jumping to conclusions. He may just have a big head and big teeth. He reminds reporters, individual animals vary, proportions differ. Until more of the skeleton is excavated, measured, and analyzed, any claims about overall size remain speculation. Good science requires evidence, and the evidence is still buried in a frozen Montana hillside. But the teeth themselves are not speculation. They are hard evidence, measurable and undeniable, that at least one T-Rex grew dental weaponry far beyond anything previously documented. Whatever else this animal was, it had a bite force that would have exceeded anything in the known fossil record. Those 17-inch teeth were weapons of extraordinary destructive power, capable of crushing bone and tearing flesh, with forces that modern engineers still struggle to comprehend. The dig continues. As winter releases its grip on the Montana Badlands, Clayton Fipps and his team will return to that narrow ridge in Garfield County. The fossils have waited 66 million years. They have waited through the rise and fall of countless species, through ice ages and warming periods, through the emergence of humans and the building of civilizations. They can wait a few more months, but the excavation ahead will be unlike anything Fipps has undertaken before. The significance of the discovery demands extraordinary care. Every grain of sediment must be examined. Every fragment of bone must be catalogued. The process cannot be rushed, regardless of how much the world wants answers. This could be a multi-year project, Phipps explained. It could be a multi-year project before we even know how much of this animal we get. It's going to be very tedious, and there's going to be a lot of dirt that has to be gone through with a knife, he continued. You can't just take a dozer and plow one out. You can't. You'll destroy it. The knife work Phipps describes is exactly as painstaking as it sounds. Excavators will lie on their stomachs for hours, carefully scraping away millimeters of matrix rock with dental picks and small brushes. They will use tools borrowed from dentistry and archaeology. Picks, probes, brushes with bristles finer than human hair. They will photograph and document every step, creating a complete record of exactly where each bone fragment was found in relation to every other fragment. They will apply consolidants to fragile surfaces, chemicals that seep into porous bone and harden to prevent crumbling. They will wrap exposed bones in protective plaster jackets, cocoons of burlap and plaster that support delicate specimens during transport. They will load those jacketed bones onto trucks and transport them to laboratory facilities where preparation can take months or years per specimen. The upper jaw fragments found alongside the teeth offer hope. Where there is jaw, there might be skull. Where there is skull, there might be vertebrae. Where there are vertebrae, there might be ribs, limbs, pelvis. Each piece recovered adds to our understanding of this individual animal and of T-Rex as a species. Each piece lost to erosion is gone forever. Phipps has been cleaning and preserving the teeth that have already been extracted, preparing them for scientific study and eventual display. The meticulous work continues even as winter rages outside his workshop. Under bright lights and on magnifying lenses, he removes sediment from serration edges and fills tiny cracks with preservation materials. When spring arrives, he will be ready to return to the field. Trent Stanton never expected to find anything that September morning except coyotes. He was just a rancher doing what Montana ranchers have always done, working the land his family has worked for generations. He had no idea that his morning hunt would lead to one of the most significant paleontological discoveries of the decade. The paleontology community watches with bated breath. Museums around the world have already expressed interest. Scientists are preparing research proposals. The media attention grows with each passing week. Everyone wants to know what else lies beneath that narrow ridge. And somewhere in the frozen darkness of a narrow Montana ridge, buried beneath protective layers of dirt and hope, the rest of the monster still waits. What are your thoughts on this strangest discovery of all time? Share in the comments.